hentai. You love it, I love it, what's not to love? It's a medium that sets the sky as the limit and delivers on fantasies you didn't even know you had. And of all the hentai out there, Overflow is definitely one of them. Standing tall is one of the most well-animated series with a spicy vanilla twist. It truly lives up to its name, overflowing the viewer with emotions not typically associated with hentai through its superb narrative discourse. And this is no more apparent than during the show's first episode, where our main character, John Overflow, is thrown into a perfectly relatable and wacky conundrum as he has to decide which of his sisters he wants to fuck. Yeah, let's try that again. If you ask around for what the most popular hentai is out there, you'll likely have most people in agreement as to what the answer is. Sure, some guy will undoubtedly say Bible Black, and that's great, granddad, but please come back to the retirement home. However, of the people that aren't over the dying age of 27, without a doubt, the most common answer you'll hear is that of Overflow, and for good reason. For one, it's, well, the correct one, but even without looking at the viewer charts, a lot of people already have a decent grasp as to the popularity of this hentai. Having been released in early 2020, Overflow quickly became the talk of the town within a lot of online communities relating to hentai or anime, not just by setting a new standard of animation within hentai, but also by delivering a neatly packaged story featuring a love triangle that sees the characters undergo some genuine development throughout its runtime, and I, personally, just could not give less of a shit about it if I tried.
What the fuck, man?
Okay, let me explain. In no way am I trying to scrutinize Overflow in and of itself. No matter what I say in this video, taking source material that looks like this and turning it into the most popular animated hentai on the market is nothing short of fucking amazing. And it's not like I don't get the reason people like it either. Not only is it without a doubt one of the best animated series in the world of hentai, but it's also very much a show that you can feel is designed for mass appeal. Outside of the fact that we're watching, well, animated pornography, everything in the show is very much down to earth, and little suspension of disbelief is required to actually watch it. There's nothing overtly weird or foreign going on, it's basically just an animated edition of what you'd be watching anyways. Not to mention that the two main girls featured in this are pretty cute to boot. Like, I'm no predator, but you dress like this, you better carry a firearm because pepper spray will not stop me. So what's the problem then?
It's just so fucking boring.
You see, in an effort to appeal to everyone, a lot of things have had to be turned way down to make the show more approachable, and it just removes any and all character that the show could possibly have. Hentai is, by nature, a very unhinged medium, as moving to the realm of animation takes away most of the limitations of a live-action production. Anything is possible. I'd say that at its core, and that's the appeal of the medium. Remove any and all boundaries and morality in an effort to try your hardest to just make the thing most people will lose their come to, and to that avail, use whatever you see fit. Tentacles, ahegao, monster girls, children. Discarding relation to the real world allows for anything to be produced, and while it certainly can go a bit far at times, it's also the driving force which makes hentai so unique when compared to other forms of smut. Now, obviously, not every new release has to be euphoria, and I'm not even trying to propose anything drastic either, but even just in regards to small things, it really feels like Overflow just doesn't take advantage of the medium it's being made in whatsoever. For a comparison, take a show like Falling Girls, which, for all intents and purposes, is also a pretty down-to-earth vanilla hentai, but the main difference between the two is that Falling Girls uses aspects unique to the medium of animation to both set up and execute its sex scenes. Whether it's the main girl having a slow motion fall through the floor at the start of the series, a wall randomly collapsing as part of a joke, or just downright ridiculous initiation of the deed, a lot of these aspects, if converted to live action, would just end up feeling extremely goofy or out of place. But because of the already suspended reality provided by hentai, it feels very fitting to have these included in the show itself, and it adds massively to it. Meanwhile, Overflow seems to almost deliberately not include anything from that category, staying as close to realism as it possibly can, refusing to use the advantages that the medium allows, which, frankly, does little more than just make it a more dull watching experience. It's like slice of life for hentai, just without the comedy or any of the other aspects that made that concept work in the first place. Remember what I said earlier about how the show features some genuine development for the three main characters? Yeah, I was lying. In fact, the personality of all three stay very much within the confines of what you would expect if I told you that the main character is a self-insert, Codename is a cute childhood friend, and Ayane is a bit of a tsundere. As you will quickly find that any sort of actual character progression or plot development hinted at is quickly disregarded in favor of just keeping both girls available for the main character. Which makes sense from a practical standpoint. After all, why would you lock away half of your female cast from being with your main character? But for what is supposed to be a vanilla story like this, it just feels like such a fucking cop-out. Now I can already read some of the comments before they're written. Hard, why are you focusing on all these nitpicks? How about instead of diving into all these menial details, you look at the myriad of positives that the show has to offer instead, like the good animation, realistic setup, a plethora of sex scenes. Even if you didn't like it yourself, what good is there in trying to change everyone's opinion on what is obviously a popular show? Why bother criticizing it? Just let people enjoy things.
Let people enjoy things.
That's an interesting argument. I hadn't really thought of it myself, if I'm being honest, but, yeah, no, I can definitely see where you're coming from. However, okay, hear me out here, just a shot in the wind, okay? Counterpoint, instead of that, how about I fucking kill you, huh? How about that? How's that for an alternative, huh? How about I fucking kill you?
Can we get much
One Piece! The One Piece is real!
What the fuck is going on?
Because you know what? You're right. A lot of the complaints I have about this show are also things that could be said about hentai I really enjoy. But the main difference to those series is that the smut scenes in Overflow are just so boring and dull that I can barely bring myself to watch them. At best, I'd say there's a couple scenes with a genuinely good build-up, but once it gets to the sex scenes themselves, well... And honestly, I think that's what it really comes down to, because despite how good the animation, story, or overall characters might be, if the show doesn't actually turn you on, what the fuck does any of that even matter in the first place? I love Attack on Titan, it's a great show, but if you take it in its entirety and add a scene where Armin very nonchalantly rubs his flaccid penis up and down against the crystal where Annie is held inside, before after a couple minutes spontaneously splurging all over it and then silently cleaning up after himself before giving the crystal a pat and then pretending nothing happened, while technically now classified as one and being a banger show beyond that, I still wouldn't call it a good hentai, because ultimately we're judging by different criteria here. While the supporting elements of a show can certainly add to its value, there is a fundamental case which has to be reached for hentai, and that's in the form of the question, am I turned on by what I'm currently watching? If the answer is no, then the rest doesn't really matter, it's failed its purpose. Sure, you might say it has some merit beyond that, or it's just generally interesting to watch, but it's not a good hentai. And that's also why most of my other points up until now are rather, I'm gonna be honest, pointless. Like, who fucking cares what the character development and their animated pornography is like if the porn itself is not worth watching? I certainly didn't download a hentai to be amazed by its in-depth character lore or superb storytelling, I did it to beat off. And if I can't even do that, then what reason is there really for me to be watching in the first place? There's not much I can say or do to justify my stance about it either, as it is a very personal matter. I truly wish that I could say I had a good time with this one, but sadly I just didn't. And if you came here as a fan of the show, looking forward to hearing me praise it, then I'm sorry. Sorry that you have such shit taste! I get why people like it. I get why it's such a popular show, but it's for those exact same reasons that I just don't care for it. I'm not saying that the show has no merit. In fact, if someone completely new to hentai was to ask me for a good show to start off with, this would be a hard contender. As by all objective metrics, this is a really good hentai and a genuinely good introduction to the medium itself. Sure as shit, it's a bit more welcoming than the stuff I started off with.
What are you doing? I want to fuck her!
Take it
Leave
easy,
me
man.
alone,
Take it
my
easy.
girl!
Get away! Get away from me!
They just don't make them like they used to. But for anyone who's looking to get something out of the hentai that can't be strictly provided by just clicking the random button on the amateur section of Pornhub, should you fap to? Overflow? No.